It's your boy Luke, back again for another NFL Showdown picks video, this time for our Monday Night Football matchup between the Indianapolis Colts and the Baltimore Ravens. And in this matchup, we don't have two high-powered offenses by any means, two teams that are historically related though, but most importantly, some massive Draftkings contests. We always do for these Monday Night Football slates, so as a result, going to be giving you all the goods to help take down some money this weekend. What we're going to do in this video is we're going to talk about our stud options for each team, going through the Colts first and finishing with the Ravens, as well as some of my favorite value options on the slate, and we'll wrap it up with our favorite selections for the captain spot. Again, as always, these picks are going to be data-based. We're going to be using statistics, going to be using projections and whatnot to try and make the most educated decisions for the single game slate. So without further ado, guys, let's hop right into the picks here for Monday Night Football. In terms of an injury report, we have quite a few injuries on both sides of this game. So first off, with the Indianapolis Colts side of things, we have Jordan Wilkins and Nyheim Hines both questionable at the running back position. In terms of the offensive line, we have Ryan Kelly and Brandon Smith both questionable. On the defensive side of things, we have Darius Leonard, Rock Yassin, Kari Willis, all questionable. And in terms of guys on IR, we have TJ Carey, the cornerback on IR. Same thing with stud guard Quentin Nelson. And that's a huge drop to this team, a huge hole on that offensive line that we'll have to see how it plays out over these next few weeks. In terms of wide receivers that have been on the IR for quite some time, T.Y. Hilton and Desmond Penn have not been activated from the IR yet and will miss yet another game. On the Ravens side of things, we have even more injuries to speak of. So guys that are questionable this week, we have Deshaun Elliott, Ronnie Staley. Same thing with Geno Stone and Alejandro Villanueva. All questionable for this game, but all expected to suit up. In terms of guys on the IR, there is a laundry list of players on this Ravens team. So first off, we have Rashad Bateman, Miles Boykin. We have Derek Wolfe on defense. Same thing with Marcus Peters. Gus Edwards has been out for quite some time, will remain on the IR. Same thing with Nick Boyle, Justice Hill, J.K. Dobbins, and Jawan James. So tons of injuries on both sides of this game. And that's a huge reason why when we take a look at the over-under in the implied total here, it's just 46 points. So one of the lower scoring games that we'll find all week here in week 5, and also one of the larger spreads. So the Ravens, huge favorites in this game. They are the home team, going to be a 7-point favorite over the Colts as of right now. Let's talk about some of our stud options for each team with those injuries in mind, and keeping in mind that this is going to be a lower scoring affair. We're expecting most likely the top fantasy scorers to be right around the 20, the 25 point mark. So we got to make sure we keep that in mind when going after our players. So at number 3, we have Carson Wentz at $10,200. And if this were going to be a shootout, he would be a much more attractive option, especially at that price tag. But in this game with such a low implied total, especially as the severe underdogs right here, not going to be huge on Carson Wentz in this matchup. So as of right now, projected for 17.4 points. Also projected for nearly 70% ownership. So somebody who's definitely not being overlooked. Somebody who a majority of people are just going to click in because he's a quarterback. But to this point of the year, Wentz has been pretty atrocious. Has not gone over the 300-yard mark to this point. Also has not thrown many touchdowns. And while he's shown a little bit of running upside, has been running quite a few option plays for this offense, that's not going to be enough to get it done at that price tag. So somebody who, if I end up having enough salary to fit him into a lineup, I'm not going to be completely against that, but definitely not somebody I'm clicking as a first click into a lineup. And number 2, though, somebody I like a whole lot more, especially because of the price tag, also because of his PPR upside. In these low-scoring affairs, I'm really trying to target people that get the ball a lot. And if you're looking at target share on this Indianapolis team, Michael Pittman Jr. is going to jump off the books. So right now projected for 15.9 points, nearly 25% ownership, but that's a number that I'm willing to pallet on this slate. So again, Michael Pittman Jr., the reason why I like him is he has a very high floor. Somebody who's going to get targeted 8 to 12 times per game. He's actually gotten targeted over 10 times in a game twice so far here in 2021, which is great to see. Also somebody who does very well in the red zone. He gets a ton of looks when it gets down to that 20-yard line. And as a result, if there's going to be just a few touchdowns scored on a slate, I definitely want to be targeting the guys that get a majority of those looks. So that's why it comes in there at number 2. But if we're going to talk about the red zone, especially the red zone usage on this team, it starts and ends with Jonathan Taylor. They absolutely love running him in the red zone. He's a very safe ball handler, does not fumble very often, also very effective between the tackles. So at $9,800, I love going to him on this slate. Again, I do expect them to lean on the run in the red zone. That takes a ton of production away from Carson Wentz. But with Jonathan Taylor, it's obviously a massive boost. So as of right now, projected for just 20.8% ownership, which is way far too low in my opinion. He should be in that 40, even 50% ownership range, and I would still probably have him as a play on this slate. So again, gets a ton of usage. I'm expecting 20 to 25 rushes in this game. And again, somebody who they rely on a ton in the red zone. But now over for the Ravens side of things, at number 3, we have Sammy Watkins, who may be a little bit of a surprise if you guys have followed me on the channel here. I'm not a massive fan of Sammy Watkins, but in this scenario, when they're facing off against the Indianapolis Colts, he's in a little bit of a unique circumstance. So somebody who obviously is the clear number 2 target on this team, Marquise Brown being the number 1 wide receiver, and I expect the Colts to hunker down on Marquise Brown. I mean, we've seen him explode for a few times over these past few weeks, has a ton of deep play threat, somebody who is very good at high pointing the ball, so even though he doesn't have massive size, is still able to leverage that against defenders. So I'm expecting him to get double teamed quite a bit. They have quite a few decent cornerbacks over there in Indianapolis. And even though they have a few guys down with injury, I do expect them to focus a lot of their efforts on Brown. And as a result, Sammy Watkins, very likely to get a lot of open looks against these young defenders. The guys that they're going to use that aren't going to be on Marquise Brown are going to be 3rd, 4th string players because of all the injuries that they have. So Sammy Watkins, likely to have a very good matchup here. Again, expected to have 14 points in this instance. Also projected for under 20% ownership. So you're getting leverage there in terms of salary, also in terms of ownership. So that's why I love him there at number 3. At number 2, we have Mark Andrews at $6,600. It's a crime that he's only $800 more than Sammy Watkins. So a clear distinction between these two. I think Sammy Watkins is a little bit more of the leverage play. If you're looking for more of a save option, the clear choice is Mark Andrews here. So I have him projected right now for 15.6 points. Still under 20% ownership in terms of the flex position. And really like him here, especially his red zone efficiency. The 2nd highest paid tight end in the entire NFL. Somebody who, again, is expected to take on a huge red zone role. Has kind of lived below expectations to this point. Has been slightly disappointing, we would say. But Mark Andrews, again, a much more talented player than he's shown to this point of 2021. I expect the numbers to rebound in a big way over the next few weeks. But at number 1, we knew this was the slam dunk play of the slate. I didn't have to tell you to play Lamar Jackson, so we're not going to go into crazy depth here. But at $12,600, yes, he is the best play on the slate. Yes, he is a lock. I don't use that very often, but again, an extremely high floor because of his rushing upside. So as of right now, projected for 22.8 points, and that's even in a low over-under game. So you're absolutely going to have him in your lineups. Guys, I wanted to let you know about my Patreon page with my NFL projections if you guys haven't already seen it. On there, you guys get projections for every player on this week's slate, whether it's for Showdown, whether it's for the main slate on Draftkings. I cover every player in every game. So if you've ever been wondering what I thought about the secondary wide receivers for the Steelers, or I was wondering about the best defense on the slate, that's exactly how you can find that out. So it's just $1 for the month. Again, I cover every game for every week. It is one of the best, if not the best values in the entire industry. So highly recommend you guys check it out. Link will be in the description. Again, just $1 for the month. And now for our value picks on this slate. At number 3, we have Jack Doyle, who's only $2,600, and at 8.3 projected points is also a relatively high floor player as well. So I'm projected right now for 10.4% ownership, and he's somebody who definitely needs to score a touchdown to pay off his price tag, but one of the best red zone targets in the NFL in terms of efficiency. We've seen him score quite a few touchdowns over the past few years. Is one of only 3 tight ends in the NFL to have scored over 20 touchdowns. So you'd love to see that from Doyle. And even though he's obviously lost a step or two because of old age, because of injuries, that kind of thing, somebody who's one of the best, if not the best blockers at the tight end position in the entire NFL. Somebody who has some of the best, surest hands of anyone in the NFL. So extremely hard to keep him off the field. So at number 3, at just $2,600, I absolutely love him for value. At number 2, we have Paris Campbell, who is definitely a little bit more of a risky play than somebody like Jack Doyle, but also comes with a much higher upside. So at $3,800, I have him projected right around the same type of points. They're at 8.7. Also a lot more ownership and nearly 30% ownership, but that's well warranted. Campbell's somebody who is extremely fast, one of the fastest players, period, in the NFL. Also somebody capable of turning a 5-yard slant into an 80-yard touchdown. And when you're playing on Showdown, when you're in these single game slates, where all you really need is 8 to 15 points to pay off that price tag, those are the type of players I love going after. He doesn't need a ton of targets to get it done, especially in a lower implied total game. I love going to guys like Campbell. But at number 1, we have Tyson Williams. He's only $1,200, and to be quite honest with you, this price tag makes absolutely no sense. So projected right now for just 7.6 points, but Tyson Williams is essentially filling the role that Gus Edwards had behind J.K. Dobbins again last year, also for last year in 2020 as well. So again, somebody who's going to get around 7 to 10 targets per game out of the backfield, whether that's rushes, whether that is catches, that kind of thing. And with that type of a workload, he has more than enough opportunity to pay off that $1,200 price tag. If he ends up scoring a touchdown, he could end up even running for the captain position. So really like him there at number 1, and he provides plenty of upside as well. In terms of our captain options, a few stud options that I'm definitely paying up for on this slate. At number 3, we have Michael Pittman Jr. at $13,500. As of right now, projected for 23.9 points with that bonus and single-digit ownership, which is the main point to look at here. Only projected to be owned in 7.5% of people's captain slots, and that is far too low. Again, somebody who has a ton of PPR upside, has gone over 10 targets in 2 games this year, and if he does that even in this low over-under game, could definitely get to that mark you're looking for. At number 2, we have Jonathan Taylor at a little bit more expensive at $14,700, projected right around that same kind of point at 25.2 points, but also somebody who has a lot more of a ceiling in my opinion. Again, with Pittman, you're getting a little bit of a higher floor because of the PPR upside, but with Jonathan Taylor, you're getting a ton of red zone usage. I mean, we talked about it before. He's getting nearly 40% of the usage down in the red zone, and in a game with such a low over-under, you're looking to capitalize on that red zone production, especially that touchdown production, as much as humanly possible. And for our number 1 captain, it's not even close. Lamar Jackson at $18,900 is the best captain play on the slate. Essentially, every time Lamar Jackson's on the slate for Showdown, you want to have him at captain. So right now projected for 34.2 points. There's no one even close to that type of projection on this slate. And again, he does come with quite a bit of opportunity cost, nearly $20,000, nearly 30% ownership at captain as well. But again, all of those metrics, in my opinion, well worth it. A lot of times people think that in high over-under games, you want to target somebody like Lamar Jackson at captain, but that's actually far from the truth, right? In those high over-under games, it's very unlikely that Lamar Jackson is scoring 4 or 5 of those touchdowns. That's typically in a game where he's using the ball a lot through the air. He's giving it to his wide receivers, his tight ends. And one of those players typically ends up being optimal. But in these games where a total of 46 points is implied, he could go out there and score 2 or 3 touchdowns, and that'd be all of the touchdown production in the entire game. And if that's the case, he would obviously end up being the optimal captain. So I absolutely love him in these lower over-under type games. That's all I've got for my Monday Night Football picks, guys. Go ahead and let me know down in the comments who you've got as your favorite captain play on the slate. Obviously, for me, that is going to be Lamar Jackson. A little bit expensive, though, so if I'm trying to save a little bit of salary, going down to Jonathan Taylor. But I'd love to hear from you guys. Let's go ahead and get some debate going down in the comments. As always, guys, really appreciate the viewership and the support. If you guys haven't already liked the video, if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, make sure you guys go ahead and do so. We're going to have this Sunday morning live stream coming tomorrow morning at 11:30 a.m. Eastern time. So if you guys are playing DFS for the main slate, highly recommend that you guys stop by. We're going to be talking all things player pool, ownership projections, game theory, as well as any live questions that you guys have down in the chat. So again, highly recommend that you guys stop by. It'll be at 11:30 a.m. Eastern time. Until then, guys, good luck with any of the lineups that you enter for this weekend, and see ya.